Mr. Clerk, the time is 6 o'clock. I'm going to call this Budget Committee meeting to order. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. Shared understanding of the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past has brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Can you get a motion to approve the agenda? Councilor Gallo, Mr. Gilliland, comments, questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, no delegations. Move to items 6.1, departmental budget presentations. 6.1.1, council. This is binder tab 6. Mr. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll just go through the council budget for 25 and 26. It doesn't like me. Just having issues with the clicker. Oh, there we go. So this shows an overview of the expenditures for the next couple of years and with a little bit of history. Most of the council budget is funded through the tax levy overall. You can see that there is a bit of a trend increasing back up to 100%. And that's because there are some tax stabilization draws related to the Economic Development Committee. If we look at this slide, we can see that these show the changes overall compared to what was presented last year. So the changes in here are very, very minor, mostly in the salaries and benefits adjustments, and that just adjusts everything for the latest benefits rates and the latest salary rates. And there's also the photocopier contract savings, which you're going to see in everybody's presentation tonight because these savings get distributed out across the corporation, and a very minor adjustment for meeting expenses. And that is it.
Someone like to move to receive this for information? Councilor Gallo, Councilor Kim, any comments, questions on binder tab 6? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 6.1.2, Office Chief Administrative Officer, binder tab 7. Mr. Nadarozny.
There we go. Good evening. It's my pleasure to present I think the second shortest presentation tonight after the one you just saw to go over the 2025 and 2026 operating budgets and the 10-year capital plan for the Office of the CAO. I'd first like to provide some highlights from 2024 that speak to the important work we've been doing. In 2024, we continue to strengthen our internal communications, undertaking an organization-wide communication survey to get a pulse on the communications preferences and needs of staff, and launching the Intranet Refresh Project to deliver a modernized intranet that will help improve staff engagement. We also finalized our updated brand standards policy and brand standard guide to ensure consistent use of the town brand identity. We made major improvements to search capabilities and accessibility on our website, helping to ensure community members can easily navigate aurora.ca. We also focused heavily on creating engaging and informational short-form video content, by far the most popular type of digital content right now, which saw a 253% increase in video views in the first quarter of 2024 when compared to the previous year. We launched AuroraTownSquare.ca ensuring community members had a one-stop shop for all things town square related. We also oversaw all marketing and communications for the town square grand opening events. I do want to note that the completion of Town Square was a very significant accomplishment for the CAO's office, not just from a communications perspective, but also from a project management standpoint, with me being heavily involved in the overall execution of the project. Turning to our key objectives for 2025, those include the continued implementation of the multi-year strategic communications plan, which includes numerous tactics and projects to enhance two-way communications and engagement with the community. Our continued work with large project support across all departments and divisions. And right now, our larger project would be the SARC expansion and the upcoming upgrade of our CRM system. The continued implementation of the organizational structure review and training that we've been doing in order to strengthen the entire management team and promote more cross-departmental collaboration. And our website host platform and content migration project, which will enhance the user experience on aurora.ca and other town sites, while also providing staff with more flexibility to make website updates in-house as opposed to relying on contracted work. Our employment engagement survey action plans will see us work closely with HR to develop new programs and initiatives to increase professional development opportunities and foster a more energized and engaged staff. And finally, ongoing enhancements to our community engagement program with new online and in-person initiatives. This slide shows our net budget change, which amounts to an increase of $136,200 in 2025, followed by a slight decrease in 2026. The increase in 2025 is mainly driven by the continuation of communications project management support that is helping the communications divisions move forward on strategic projects to strengthen external and internal communications. This slide simply shows the change to our multi-year budget from what had been previously approved, an $87,000 increase in 2025 and a $34,300 increase in 2026. We have a very unsophisticated capital program in the Office of the CAO. This slide shows the changes to our capital budget for 25 and 26 from what had previously been approved. The additional $50,000 is for the website host platform and content migration project that I spoke of earlier, which is spread over 2025 and 2026, as well as the continuation of the original $125,000 project, which goes towards the ongoing organizational structural review and training that we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Natarasi. Council, can I get a motion to receive for information? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Weiss, any comments or questions on this tab? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at the 2024 accomplishments. The website, I have to say that perhaps there were improvements made, but it is still very hard to search. And I hear from residents all the time. And on myself, when you enter something, you can still come up with 500 or 1,000 options. So I don't know what you can do about that, but it's very important that the residents can use this easily, and also council, so we don't have to bother staff. Do you have any comments in response to that?
Mr. Sale.
The project that I spoke of, through you, Mr. Mayor, the project that I spoke of earlier, the additional project, that will enhance our ability to make some of these changes without necessarily going through a contractor all the time. So we'll be continually looking for ways that we can make access to this, to the site and the information that's in it easier. We've heard those concerns expressed before. There's a lot of information on there. It changes very often, all the time. And so we're trying to balance the need to continually change it, but also make sure that it's streamlined and efficient for people to find what they need quickly.
Councillor.
Thank you. I'm just disagreeing with under accomplishments, strengthening search bar functionality to offer more targeted and relevant searches. I am saying that I think that needs a lot more help, and I can't say that it's an accomplishment for this year. But thank you.
Yeah, Counselor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Nadarosny, you do list a fairly nice list of 2024 accomplishments. Was there anything that you set out to do in 2024 that didn't get done?
So,
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Mike.
Sorry. Through you, Mr. Mayor. There's certainly some progress, not necessarily directly in our department, but from a CAO perspective and the office of the CAO overall. There were a few initiatives in HR that we would have liked to move forward, but we had a staffing change in there and some vacancies. And so there wasn't the time that we might have put into some of those things. But other than that, we knew it would be a year focused on the Town Square project and the various communication initiatives that we had. And I'm quite satisfied with the progress we made in all of those.
Counselor.
Thank you. Second question has to do with the biggest driver for the increase this year is the continuation of the communications project management. Can you just give a little bit more detail about that one?
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this continues to be something, a bit of a hangover from the COVID experience where we had so much information being put on the web and people looking to the web even more than usual during that period. So we've been taking the lessons learned from that, as well as some of the things that we were providing and that the community seemed to like. And we've been looking for ways to enhance that and maintain that in a post-COVID environment. So the project that we spoke of, for example, that speaks to the need to be able to change this information more quickly and to keep it relevant. It speaks to the public wanting more and more video content. And so we've been able to access some of the safe recovery funding still, the little pocket that remains, as a continuation of the post-COVID experience, and be able to put some more resources to managing all those things we're trying to achieve and maintain after COVID.
Counselor.
Thank you. So the 101,000 is being spent on third-party resources, or what exactly is being the increase for?
Mr. Sale.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, it's for a contract position. So we've kept Daniel engaged and working on our intranet, as well as some of these other projects that that we're implementing this year.
Counselor.
Thank you. And then my final question really has to do with the communication snapshot. You know, I think it looks at first appearance to be great numbers, but as I've said in the past, it would be helpful to have some context. When you say you have 41,000 social media followers across all channels, I'd like to be able to compare that to something. You know, how is that compared to other municipalities in York Region? Is 41,000, above or below our expectations? You know, can you do it as a percentage of the population in Aurora or of households? It would be nice to have some comparators or some benchmarks associated with the various numbers presented, so that we can get at least I can get a better sense of how well we're doing. That's it. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you. Counselor Gallo.
Thank you. In the overview, the operating financial summary, there's a net forecast for 2024 and a budget for 2024. And there's a variance of some 160,000. Could you explain that variance?
So, Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it should be included in the last forecast update that was done. This is based on the August 31st forecast. I can pull that information up and send you the link if you like.
So do we have a reason why there's that? It's over budget from what we budgeted for. We budgeted that's actually, sorry, it's under budget. We budgeted 1.6 million and we spent 1,592. But going forward, we always add on to what our budgeted numbers are. In this case, it's whatever percentage increase based on 24 budget. Is there a good explanation of why there's that anomaly? And have we taken that into account when we're budgeting 2025?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So when we do our budgets for 2025 across the board, we do take a look at our historical spending and look at the overall trends to make some decisions on where there's areas we could have for potential savings or where there may be potential increases. In this one in particular, the consulting dollars haven't all been spent or not being planned to spend by the end of this year. So that's what's driving some of the variance. And I believe there might have been an adjustment to that budget going forward as well.
Counselor,
Okay, thank you.
any other comments, questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, that carries. 6.1.3 Community Services this is binder tab 8. Ms. McDougall.
Thank you very much. Mayor and members of council and the public viewing. Today I'm here and happy to present the 2025-26 operating budget and 10-year capital plan for the Community Services Department. Just some of the highlights of our accomplishments in 2024. Very happy to report. We finally had our grand opening for the town square, September 21st to October 13th. Very pleased with the success of the town square grand opening. Nice to see that site finally open to the public. This is quite an achievement for our town of Aurora and certainly for our department. Very pleased. We've completed agreements with the Ontario Barbarians Rugby Football Club and the York Region District School Board for the development and shared use of 2 new artificial sports fields. Conducted over 40 private civil ceremonies and issued over 250 provincial marriage licenses. Completed several various capital projects, including roof replacements, sports dome, air conditioning, installation of backflow preventers, security camera upgrades, pool and ice plant equipment upgrades as well. Completed the roadmap for persons with a disability, a strategic plan that documents recreation programming for persons with a disability over a 5-year period, and also completed and received approval from council for the 2024 to 28 cultural action plan. Again, these are just some of our highlights. Objectives, again, high level objectives. Again, there's more, but for us, we will be monitoring and monitor and growing the activity at Aurora Town Square to maximize the opportunities that exist for added cultural and community activities within the expanded facility. And certainly we'll be doing a review of the business plan. We will open the SARC Gymnasium addition to the public in early of 25. We're very pleased the progress of that project is coming along very well, and we anticipate it being open in early of 25. With both of those major projects, our department will be busy with the final closeout of those capital projects for Town Square and the SARC Gymnasium addition. Implementing strategies and recommendations from the sport plan refresh, and that will be coming to council shortly. You'll see that, but with that will be a goal for us in 25. Meeting the requirements for high 5 registered municipality and obviously working towards a certification opportunity. We will also be focused on reviewing some policies, including the municipal alcohol policy and the third-party events and outdoor facilities policy. As for the budget for our department, this just gives you an overview of the department and the change from presentation from our 24 to 26 last year, seeing an increase in 2025 of 569 and in 26, 496. And overall, the impact of these is based on a number of factors noted in our tab, ultimately from general inflation costs, certainly from our contract, as well as operating costs for our facilities and salaries increases in inflation. This just provides a summary, some of the high level impacts to our budget, demonstrating some of those pressures that we're facing in our department. Ultimately, we are a department of 81 staff. This year, we're seeing an increase of 1 staff that was approved previously, tabled again as an HVAC individual. This would take our HVAC outsourcing and bringing it in-house to deliver that service. The information about that position is in further detail in our slides in tab 8. So with this just shows a summary of our budget and some of those high level pressures. For example, lease revenues has gone down. This ultimately is due to some vacancies at Young Street. However, we've seen energy savings and net material increases in savings in our facilities, thankfully. Another highlight on this, we have some special events operating pressures with our special events. Obviously, some of our most popular entities here in Aurora, they're naturally seeing cost pressures for entertainers, for operating materials to deliver those special events. So there's a cost pressure there. On a positive side, favorable to us, revenues, community program, additional revenues are coming in from an increased participation in our programs. And then just some smaller items, as mentioned, photocopier contract savings and so on. Here, looking at our capital proposed projects, quite a significant drop from our previous years, thankfully in 25, with our major capital projects coming to an end of Town Square and the Sark Gymnasium. So in 25, we're seeing a capital spend, asset management predominantly in 7.6 million in 25 for those proposed projects. This last slide is just, again, highlighting some of the higher level ones. There are some more projects within tab 8, or sorry, within the various capital project tabs. But these are some of the high level ones that just of interest. We obviously are doing our best where we can to combine similar projects. When we go to tender for roofing projects, for example, showing Town Hall, we'll be doing a phase 2 initiative, as well as the seniors across the parking lot. We have a need for a youth refresh. The youth room at AFLC is very old, tired. Furniture is even being held by duct tape. So there's certainly an opportunity there to provide a bit of a refresh for the youth room at AFLC. There's definitely need for replacing the sound system at the Sark. If anybody's been to an event recently, it's very hard to understand what the caller is speaking. So we want to make sure that that is done. The Sark Arena is also looking at accessibility updates. This is specific and to an opportunity for parasport, looking at changing out our rink boards so that we can offer sledge hockey was one of the terms, or para hockey. But we want to be able to provide that opportunity. We have a connection with parasport to be able to do that, but we want to have the facility that can accommodate that type of initiative. The Sark, this is under growth and new now. The Sark external mural, this is an opportunity. We're looking now as the Sark the addition is coming to a close. As you come along Wellington, looking at the large, vast concrete brick facade, our team, it's calling for an opportunity to promote and celebrate the Aurora's athletes, the ones that have achieved excellence within their sports. And you would see many municipalities celebrate their high achievers on the sides of recreation facilities. So this is just an opportunity for council to consider that opportunity as well here at the Sark. And the last one is some community diversity equity initiatives. This is a study that we'll be embarking on. Obviously, in this case, we already have a diversity and equity inclusion action plan internal facing. We're looking at doing something more external facing out to our community, and the initiatives that we want to ensure we're delivering programs that suit the diversity and equity and inclusion opportunities within our community.
Councillor, I get a motion to receive for information. Councillor Gardner, Councillor Kim, any comments, questions on binder tab 9? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A comment on the safety protocols for staff and patrons to be reviewed. I think that's very important. I'm very glad to see that. Could you speak to the 3, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Wainwright, sorry, to Ms. McDougall? Can you speak to the floods in 5 arenas?
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe you're on.
I'm on snapshots.
Yeah, snapshots, tab 8, page 6. The floods, these are the Zamboni ice resurfacing that is taking place. That's how many ice resurfacing trips our team has taken out onto the 5 ice pads that we have.
Councillor.
Thank you very much. And I do think that I read that somewhere. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Ms. McDougall on page 8-8 in the budget binder. Under capital operating costs, the Sark gym facilities cost and program staffing net of revenue in 25. We have a deficit of 160, and that includes naturally the new hire, as well as, there's insufficient time throughout the year for any revenues to come from, or at least not as much revenue to come from the facilities. But in 26, you have a surplus of 16,200. So I'm just wondering if you can just comment on that and why the variance there.
Mr. McDougall?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly in year one being our initiation starting off, with this opening year as presented at the time of the project for council, there was an obvious pressure to start up the SARC. This includes what that pressure was proposed to be. It includes some part-time staff to operate programs. It also includes costs for the general operation of the space, HVAC, utilities that will be generated from the costs side of things. It also includes, in this case, some rental revenue to help offset the expenditures that we're anticipating. The program revenues from delivering recreational programs is actually captured in another line, right above that or below that in committee programs growth and net revenues. So there are additional revenues being brought in for the SARC gym that would offset that 160 even further down.
No, sir.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, just one more line item under the Aurora Sports Dome. Forgive me, I didn't go through the old report regarding the Sports Dome lease arrangement, but there's revenues of 39,700 for 25, and then it declines to 3,300. Now, is that the end of the lease, or is there something happening with that lease? Can you just explain on that, please?
Ms. McDougall?
Certainly through Mr. Mayor, with the Sports Dome, as council may recall, we did do a projection of a favorable lease revenue, and we put that in our operating budget in a positive way. At this point, the way we are experiencing and seeing how revenues are going in 24, we're expecting it to be even higher than what that prediction was. So that is why you're seeing an additional 39 and 25. And it's just a conservative approach for 26 at this point. We're trying to be a little conservative, but we're seeing ourselves the town going further higher in receiving additional revenues. And part of that is the fees have gone up, but also in participation and use of the dome.
Okay.
Council?
Great, thank you. And finally on 8-13, I think there's just a typo there, but the pie chart with repairs of 142,000, I think that should be the preventative maintenance portion. Normally in organizations, you contract out to save on costs and efficiencies and not have a foundational kind of permanent cost. And so is it unique in the HVAC industry that it's so much greater that it's worth having the cost built into the organization as opposed to contracting out? Because I'm used to contracting out to save on costs, but we're doing the total reverse of that. And have we considered all the variables or situations that could arise that may inevitably reverse that trend, or the reason why we're doing this?
Ms. McDougall?
If you may, Mr. Mayor, I'd call up our director or manager of facilities, Doug Bertrand, please.
Mr. Bertrand? Welcome.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's a hybrid model, actually. So we will still be contracting out, but our in-house will be doing a lot of the preventative maintenance and saving us money that way. Rather than spending that money on the contractor, we can have our employee do that kind of work. And then we would really look at, and again, troubleshooting a lot of the initial service calls. We get calls out now, sometimes a breaker's tripped and it costs us $500 to have a service tech come out. We'll be able to do that type of stuff in-house now, as opposed to calling a contractor. So the content is the idea is to have a hybrid model where we have an expert in-house, but we also rely on contractors for the heavier duty stuff and the breakdowns. So what we can fix in-house, we will. What we need to contract out, we will contract out. So again, we're saving money off the contract side to support the position. And then we still have the contractor as backup to our staff.
Councilor?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, then. So the 106,000, I mean, I'm assuming that's not including benefits, so that might add up that figure a little bit. And if we're doing a hybrid model, then that means that we will be contracting out for certain pieces of work. So the savings isn't going to be, we're not really going to be saving 151,000, but 151 minus whatever contracts out that. Okay.
Resource on available 40 hours a week, as opposed to having a contractor in for, a couple hours and charging us $1,000, right?
Counselor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Thompson?
Thank you. Again, nice long list of accomplishments in 2024. I'd certainly like to call out the fact that you moved back into Aurora Town Square and unpacked 1,158 boxes. So I don't envy the person that had that job, but I just wanted to call that one out. So that was great. Similar question I asked earlier, when you looked at your annual work plan, were there any initiatives that you wanted to accomplish in 2024 that you weren't able to do? Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, when looking at how much was proposed and knowing we had the large town square project, which really involved my whole team and their supplemental team, certainly things maybe didn't happen as quickly as we'd like, but there is progress being made on all of our initiatives. So I wouldn't say we've missed any. It's just we maybe haven't been as far along as we would have liked to at this point from when we started.
Counselor?
Thank you. And now on to the HVAC position. You present a business case for it. It on the surface, it seems to make sense. I think my question though is why now and not before? Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall or Mr. Bertrand.
Mr. Bertrand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think just due to the age of our infrastructure as well as the costs. I mean, the costs are considerably going up for the contractors and the trades. I mean, the invoices we're getting are massive for some relatively small jobs, and it's the industry. I mean, I think it's much more efficient for the town to have a resource inside that can handle a lot of these small things, and then we're not paying contractors large bills for small items.
So thank you. So it'd be fair to say that in the past, there wouldn't have been this kind of savings. And so that's why it wasn't necessarily being brought forward. Now that we've seen the cost escalations and so forth, it makes sense.
Well, I think too, the town is growing. Our infrastructure is growing. Our assets are growing. We've got a lot more assets now with Town Square. Some of our infrastructure is aging. So now's the time to do it. It makes sense, right?
Thank you. My other question has been asked, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Reese?
Yeah, thank you. The first question I had has to do with the DEI, and Ms. McDougall made mention about its external facing. Can she be a little bit more specific about the DEI project that's going to be external facing as opposed to internal? I know internal is within our department, but how is that going to shake out when you look at it externally?
Ms. McDougall?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, I'll do my best, but if I need to supplement, Phil is here. But certainly the goal ultimately for external, we have various partners we work with. They're through through our cultural partners. We have sporting groups that we permit to. There is certainly a goal, an objective of ours to ensure who we work with are considerate of diversity, DEI initiatives. So part of the action plan would look at how internally, when I say internally now, the program staff are planning and programming initiatives that are considerate, diverse, inclusive, but at the same time working and wanting to work with our partners and ensuring that they have that on their radar as well. It's not something we can at this stage police that they are delivering initiatives in a DEI way, but there is certainly an opportunity for us to support them, whether it's something developing a draft policy that they can engage with, hosting initiatives and programs that are around DEI initiatives that they can participate in. So the review is to look at how we can support the community in delivering public programs, but also as a community organization, what initiatives we can offer them to join, to be part of, to support their local smaller group.
Counselor?
Great, thank you. The next question has to do with the ATS business plan. You suggest in here that the business plan is going to be updated, but it'll come back to us after a year. Is a year too long, or why was a year? I would have thought in the first year we would be concerned about monitoring and reporting and being careful to meet some key performance indicators. So can you tell me a little bit about why a year as opposed to quarterly or semi-annually? through you.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we mean by that is during the first year, it's a constant review. So this team is ultimately reviewing on a regular basis if we're meeting the benchmarks, if we have predicted or booked so many performances, were they successful? And there's a collection of data that we can pull from that in preparation for an update in a year's time. So it's an ongoing analysis.
Great. So it is a monitoring type of thing as opposed to a report that ends up at the end of the year. Thank you. The other comment gets back to the objectives that you have in progress and strategies to recruit and retain part-time staff, which I understand is a difficult thing now. Can you give a little bit of an overview of why that happened just for our public? Because publics get in touch with us a lot and they ask why we don't have this, why we don't have that, if you get online at 6:05, you can't get your kid into swimming. And so is that partly a staffing problem through you, Mayor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly I would say all of the divisions are experiencing recruiting and retaining part-time staff a challenge, even more so for whatever reason since COVID. Even since 2019 and beyond. And we're not quite sure what the reasonings are deep down. Somebody in the HR world might have some additional predictions as to why that is the case. However, we are always recruiting for team members. And in fact, a model some of the team members or managers have shifted to is we used to have a whole part-time crew of staff that were craving more hours. They'd want more and more and more. That isn't the case anymore. We're finding staff in a part-time setting carry through 2, 3, 4 jobs. And so they're less available to us to pull them in. So what we're finding is we are having to recruit increased number of staff to still service the level and to maintain our service level. So we might have more headcount in part-time, but still delivering the same number of hours. So it's a different world in recruiting and retaining staff in this way.
Councilor?
Okay. Makes sense. And perhaps this isn't a question to you, but maybe for Ms. Teenkamp, but I see nothing in here about the rugby development of the rugby field and the other things that are happening in rugby. So can you somehow direct me to where we can find that information? Through you, Mayor?
Will that be in another binder, Taz? Ms. Teenkamp?
The rugby construction of the field sits under operations. So if there's
okay.
a question related to that, I'd be happy to answer.
We'll get that under binder tab 11, I believe.
So, thank you. No further.
Thank you. Councilor Gallo?
Thank you. Just to follow up on Councilor Kim's question on the sports dome. On chart 8.8, it says, I guess that chart is indicating a change in budget. I'm assuming, and it says 39,000, just around $40,000. That's a change. What is the actual revenue of the sports dome? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. McDougall or Ms. Mayor, anything else?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they're looking it up. I'm getting the message from them.
Okay, I'll go on to my second
Yeah,
while regarding the new position for HVAC. I'm just wondering what type of an analysis did we do? And the chart is the pie chart is incorrect. I think that should be flipped between repairs and regular maintenance. I think that the titling there is the other way around. What kind of a study did we do when we speak about the preventative maintenance that this individual would be doing compared to the contract position? Do we only take into account the labor costs, or did we take into account the actual any material costs that would have been involved in that maintenance? Or is that in addition to whatever salary we'd be paying?
Bertrand?
Contract, the contractor provides the materials for preventative maintenance.
So again, we would be procuring those on our own. And again, through co-op purchasing through the York Region Co-op, I think we can get much better pricing than our contractor does on things like filters and belts and regular maintenance materials. As far as again, our contract is broken down into two parts. There's the preventative maintenance and then there's the repairs and maintenance. So again, we looked at the repair maintenance portion that we were paying with that and thought if we brought the majority of that in-house, that would cover off the cost of the tech, as well as, again, it wouldn't take them full time to do the repairs and maintenance. It would free up them time to do repairs as well. So we were hoping that we can lower some of our repair costs as well by bringing the preventative maintenance in-house.
Counselor.
So have we calculated the actual cost of those materials, belts, filters, et cetera? Do we know what that cost is?
It's included in the contract part. I don't know it off the top of my head, the number, but it's included as part of the contract. So we do know what we're paying from the contractor. And like I said, I'm convinced we can get a much better price through the co-op,
Counselor.
through group buying.
And I guess the question is, did we calculate that into our calculation in terms of savings? Because it's not just the cost of the new employee. We'd have to be buying all of those materials.
Correct, but we're buying them now under the contract as well. So we're buying them, either the town buys them or we buy them via the contractor at a marked up percentage.
Counselor.
So as it stands now, we have a contractor and they go and do the maintenance. Do we get a separate bill for belts and?
No, it's built into their price. Like it's factored into their price.
Counselor.
So we're paying the contract.
Okay, maybe I'm not explaining myself properly. We're going to hire somebody and we're comparing the difference between a contract position, which is all inclusive, includes labor and materials for whatever they have. We're comparing that to labor only for the contract position. We haven't calculated the cost of the material that we would now have to buy versus the contractor.
Yeah.
Right, but it's still included in the contractor's contract.
Yeah. Do you want to add?
Through Mr. Mayor, I think the question is, in the analysis we presented that there's a savings of $35,300 by hiring someone to offset the cost right now that we have of maintenance. But the question is whether that 35,000 will somewhat be eaten up by the materials that person, our staff person, will now have to buy to provide the preventive maintenance. Is that the?
Thank you. You expressed it better than I did.
Mr. Bertrand.
I notes and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. In addition, you had previously mentioned that we have increased facilities. There's 11 town facilities that this individual would be looking after. You had mentioned Town Square, although in the report it says that it does not include Town Square. Would they be taking care of, through you, Mr. Mayor, everything in Town Square?
Report talks about, we have 255 pieces of equipment currently, and that didn't include the Town Square equipment at that state.
But this new individual, through you, Mr. Mayor, would include Town Square.
Correct.
Okay.
They will be maintaining Town Square.
And we're confident that one person can maintain 255 pieces of equipment on a full-time basis?
Mr. Bertrand.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes.
Counselor.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It says that we're looking forward to perhaps 3 new artificial turf fields. Where would those be?
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're always looking for opportunities where another artificial turf could be, whether it's partnered with a school or if the town is successful of acquiring lands. So what's on staff's radar, part of our Parks, Recreation and Sports Field strategy is to keep an eye on opportunities that are presented. So conversations are open and we will certainly bring anything forward to council for consideration when we have something more confidently secured.
Counselor Gardner.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned 3, I thought you might have 3 locations in mind. So that's just a wish to have 3. Thank you.
Counselor Gilliland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In respect to the growth in new, do we wait for another day to have that conversation in the departments? Here? Yeah, okay. Right through Mr. Mayor to Ms. McDougall. You had mentioned that there were some external murals that you were proposing for the SARC I was wondering if you can expand on that a little bit and if there's other technologies that you may have explored. And I'm just curious as to when we'll get a cost analysis of that.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this point, it is preliminary. Certainly more information will need to come, including criteria, the selection, the process of how, who would be celebrated. As far as materials go, there are a variety of opportunities. Here, we're presenting an idea, more of a banner scenario where installation will include brackets. So therefore, if it's in a 2 or 3 years, you're changing it out, you just have to increase or change out the banner versus having something that is backlit with more infrastructure required. So it's more of a turnover. Mural could also be painted, but again, painting requires maintenance. So to us, the initial information is looking at a banner model strung to the side of the Sark Gymnasium.
Counselor?
Thank you. And when will we be presented a cost analysis on that?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, right now there is a proposal, estimated cost that was shared with council in a separate email. At this point, certainly we can provide a breakdown through a subsequent report. I think that's actually. We can certainly, the timing of those return can come back to council at any time. And the goal will be sooner in Q1 or Q2. We'd be bringing a report back with some more information.
Council?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, Ms. McDougall, you had mentioned that we received an email with the cost analysis because we're pricing. I don't recall seeing that.
Ms. Venkes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So on the morning of October 29th, around 9 a.m., there's an email that around 9 a.m. on October 29th, there was an email from me with 2 attachments on there, which have the cost information.
Yes.
I was wondering where that was, so thought maybe we were getting that tonight for some reason. Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall. Did you explore any digital versions just out of technology, being able to switch things up easy? Is that something you had considered?
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Mayor, at this point, in our opinion, this is a bit of a placeholder. We need to do a bit more research. The digital version would be a significantly more costly venture, but I understand what you're saying. It definitely can change out the image and roll it out versus having a banner that's static for a period of time. It's something that we would need to be doing a little more research on before we report back.
Councilor?
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Oh, yeah, you got, I apologize, Councilor. Ms. Venkes, you have an answer for that first question by Councilor Gallo? Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the total revenue for the sports dome is 775,000, and the net impact on the overall budget is it reduces the overall tax levy by 250,000.
Councilor Gallo, go ahead.
Thank you. So this $40,000, what is that? Through you, Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Venkes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It was an increase to the predicted revenue.
So the increase in the predicted revenue is that 700 and sure, what was the number? So it's 40,000 in addition to more than what we expected. And what we expected was, sorry, what was the number? 700 and
Ms. Venkes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 775,000.
Ms. McDougall,
Yes.
do you want to add in?
Just if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. So 775 is where we're at today. So that to us, it's where we're at. I'm going to be near the end of 24. As far as the increase here, you're seeing it's from where we were in 25 prediction. Sorry, when we laid out the 3-year budget for the sports dome, it's an additional 39,000 higher than what we had predicted it was going to be. So I think we're even further ahead, seeing how we are with our revenues as it is.
Councilor?
Thank you. and it's fair to say probably that we're all very happy with what's happening. Have we ever gotten, because maybe I missed it, a kind of a comparison on like the full impact after all of our expenses, our debt recovery and everything? What are we netting out? Do we know, Mr. Mayor?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know staff were to come back to council with a summary of the status of that relationship. So that certainly can be included in that follow-up.
Okay.
Councillor?
Do we not know? I mean, we're in the middle of budgets. Do we not know? I don't need it tonight, but if someone could follow up with, I think it'd be good for all of us to know exactly how we're doing on that
Can we get
good
that
news
number?
situation.
Can we get that number for council? That information, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, that carries. 6.1.4 corporate services. This is binder tab 9. Serial.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm pleased to present to you the proposed budget for the Corporate Services Department. As you can see in tab 9, each division within Corporate Services has accomplished a lot over this year. Oh, geez. That's me. Okay. Along with AMPS for parking offenses, Bylaw Services has successfully implemented AMPS for non-parking offenses, such as offenses under the Property Standards, Clean Communities, and Animal Services bylaws. Speaking of animal services, in January 2025, we're pleased to report that the town of East Gwillimbury will be joining the Animal Services Partnership, along with the partnership that currently exists with the town of Georgina. Human Resources has rebranded the town's corporate values with a memorable acronym called UNITE, and UNITE stands for Uplift, Nurture, Impact, Triumph, and Equity. These are all words that reflect the town values. HR has also rolled out the leadership competencies developed last year to strengthen the town's ability to attract and retain excellent talent. The PMO Business Transformation Division has completed over 25 multi-year accessibility plan and related accessibility initiatives, including Town of Aurora being the first municipality to join the Dear Everybody campaign with Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. And the Legislative Services team has supported over 85 council and committee meetings to date. There's more to come, and has reduced offsite file storage by 33%. And legal services continues to handle most of its claims in-house to keep insurance premiums low and to save on insurance adjuster costs. Oh, wrong way. The objectives for corporate services in 2025 are a mix of new objectives and continued implementation or enhancements of previous ones. It's hard to believe that it's already time to plan for the elections in 2026. So in 2025, council will be asked to select methods of voting. Also in 2026, we are aiming to achieve platinum certification with Excellence Canada. CMT and ELT have been working collaboratively on the items needed to achieve platinum and will continue to do so in 2025. And then other objectives include implementing the risk management program once the policy is approved by council, developing initiatives and programs based on feedback from the employee engagement survey, and expanding the AMPS program to include the implementation of the automated speed enforcement and to explore the escalation of penalties for continued offenses. This slide is a high-level overview of what the budget looks like in the next couple of years. And in regards to changes to the budget in 2025, most of the savings was due to salaries and benefits being less as a result of some position changes and vacancies. And in addition, the budget, you'll see it now includes the addition of East Gwillimbury to the Animal Services Partnership, and this results in some savings as the overhead costs are shared with an additional partner. In terms of our proposed capital budget, Corporate Services is requesting funding for two projects in 2025. One is under growth and new in the amount of $150,000 to complete accessibility assessments on the remaining town assets. And the second one is under studies and other in the amount of $40,000 to implement the risk management program upon council approving the risk management policy. So the town has been working with Access Now to assess town assets to ensure the facilities are accessible. To date, assessments have been done on all of the town facilities, including Aurora Town Square and 80 kilometers of trails. This 2025 capital project is a continuation of that project, and it's to assess the town's 69 parks. As for the risk management capital project, we are intending to bring forward a draft of the risk management policy for council approval very shortly. Then, assuming council approves the policy, we will move on to the next steps of risk identification with council input, the preparation of risk mitigation plans for the top risks identified, and updating the town's existing policies and procedures to align with the approved policy. That is the end of my presentation, and I would be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We have a motion to receive for information. Councillor Weiss, Councillor Thompson, any comments or questions on this binder? Councillor Weiss.
Yes, I think I just have one, and you've shown through you, Mayor, shown a business case for the new hires. But I'm not exactly sure if it's a combination of just growth and need for a larger, because I have a larger community, because it makes reference to that. For right now, is your opinion, and this is not about increasing service levels that we have, because we do have some service level issues that come by. So is this just planning for the future? Is that what it is primarily, through you, Mayor?
This is Sarah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, are we talking about the positions for the bylaw officer in 2025?
Yes.
I would say it is a combination of more happening. And so we are trying to maintain the service levels, but it is also a combination of growth in that we are growing as a municipality. Aurora Town Square has now come into play. So there are going to be more, potentially more bylaw related issues that our officers will need to tend to.
Councillor.
Thank
you. Councillor Garner.
Thank you. On page 9.4, can you remind me, because I think we did a council exercise on corporate strat plan.
Sarah.
Are these in order of importance? It's on, sorry, page 9.4.
Sarah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, I do not think these are in order of importance, but they are in the order that they were shown in the strat plan.
Councillor.
Thank you. I would just say that protecting the environment is pretty important to a safe and healthy community. Thank you. Under the page 9.7 corporate services snapshot, it says the number of parking tickets that were issued, but it doesn't say the amount of money we collected.
Mr. Sarah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Part of the reason why I had that change was to issued is because some of the parking tickets have not been collected yet. So we only know what fines we have given. We aren't fully aware of what revenue we have received. I could get a revenue to date, but it wouldn't be a reflective of all the parking tickets that have already been issued.
Councillor.
Thank you. We have revenue to date on others. That would be great. Thanks. I have to comment on the pet licenses. It looks like a lot of money, but we know from the dog run report that there are so many more pets than there are licenses issued. And I'd like to, through you, Mr. Mayor, or to anybody on council, do we have any ideas how we can get more money? Because we need the money.
Sarah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What I can tell you is that bylaw services, well, really animal services, are doing a push for an education campaign. They constantly go around the municipality to vets and other areas to educate people to get pet licenses. When they're on the trails or patrolling parks, if they do see somebody without a license, they do encourage them to get a license. And oftentimes they'll get potentially first a warning and then a ticket if they don't have a license. So they're doing what they can to increase awareness of pet licenses.
Counselor?
Thank you. It would be really hard to keep track of who got a warning and then who got a ticket. I mean, we've had pet licenses for so many years. We've tried students going door to door. We've tried a lot of things. I think it's time to do maybe an education campaign with the tagline that we will be issuing tickets. If council agrees with that, because it's really not fair or right to all the people that do go and get their licenses. And it is a requirement of the town. So does anybody have any feedback on that? Okay, so maybe Mr. Sarah, you might have some ideas in the future. Thank you. Also, I'm a little confused. It says total number of town of Aurora employees, full-time and part-time, and it says average of the town's employee retention rate is 97.6, and yet we had 143 positions filled in 2024. Could through you, Mr. Mayor, could you help me make sense of those numbers?
Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be the 143 positions filled would include all the part-time and contract staff that we hire, especially for the camps and community services.
Counselor?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes. Sorry, I didn't have a chance to call you beforehand. Yes, but 143 out of 667 positions that we do have. Did we just have a really bad year? Because it says our employee retention is very high. Maybe I could just leave that with you. It doesn't make sense to me. And Mr. Nader-Rosny, I was going to ask you something. We actually have something, to the public who's listening or the media, we actually have something called a PMO, which is not a prime minister's office. It's a project management office and business transformation. And especially as we're thinking about hiring another person, this is a very important department. Would you be able to just speak briefly about it?
Sale?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, thank you. And thank you for mentioning this question was coming. The PMO office was created a few years ago in response to the management team's recognition that while we had certainly project management occurring within the organization, it was at the individual department levels, and each department would take different approaches to project management for different projects. And we felt there was a need to coordinate the whole area of project management and apply a uniform strategy about what projects needed what level of project management. So obviously a very small project doesn't require the same kind of rigor as something like Town Square. But we have been working through the years then to dedicate resources in corporate services to look after coming up with the techniques and strategies to do comprehensive project management on behalf of the whole organization. So it's a group that assists the other groups in pulling off the projects, and also is a bit of a feedback loop to make sure that we are properly assessing the risks involved with the projects and putting the proper strategies in place to make sure that we're tracking the projects appropriately and the risks associated with them. The business transformation piece is in some ways is an offshoot from some of the project management work. When we were trying to look at more holistically at the number of projects that we take on as a town through the budget process, and then the actual number of projects that we get completed, which is always lower than the number of projects that we endeavor to start, we're trying to do more work around quantifying why that gap exists And what are the things that stand in the way of us getting more projects done within a certain period of time? So that's where we get into business transformation about the fact that, for example, a construction project isn't simply a function of the staff in our engineering group being able to put a project through. It relies on a lot of support from a lot of other parts of the organization, procurement, legal, to name just two, that could inject delays in the project process and could have an impact on how many projects we can get done. So the business transformation unit, which is one of the things they're doing, is looking at where the bottlenecks occur as a result of monitoring the projects and trying to see where we can put more resources to increase our throughput in projects overall.
Council.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, that was a great description and a great idea to add that department to for our town, to service our town. And when I was looking, I don't know where it is, perhaps in the business case, our department does a lot more than the other departments that are existing in other municipalities. So it's great. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Serio. Mr. Serio, again, nice long list of accomplishments, one of which was the full implementation of the administrative monetary penalty system. You do talk about the fact that as a result of its successful implementation, it's resulted in officers having to spend less time in court and being able to do more services. So I guess perhaps you can just sort of expand on how it's helped the department, but at the same time, if it's freed them up to do more things, why do we need to hire 2 new bylaw officers?
Mr. Serio.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Part of the answer is that sorry, okay. The AMPS program is still fairly new, and it is we're doing screening and hearings. And so right now there's still not everything is still going through AMPS. So there is still quite a lot of stuff in the court, files in the court, sorry. And so because of that, we still need a bylaw officer to help with the service level that we currently have. As AMPS gets implemented more in full, and as the files that are currently in court go through the system, then it'll be transitioned fully to AMPS. Yes, they will have more time, but then as a result of, in a couple of years, we'd like to bring forward the licensing bylaw. We'd like to bring forward a short-term rental and a vehicle for hire. So we are going to be doing more bylaws that will then require more review, more bylaw capacity. And then those will go through AMPS as well.
Council.
Thank you. If I remember back to when we got the reports for AMPS, that was one of the rationale to moving that way, was it would reduce the workload for bylaws. So I just wanted to be able to get some understanding of that. I think the other question I have for you really is around the project manager coordinator position. So part of the business case for the bylaw officers, you looked at the 9 municipalities within York Region and used that as a comparator to justify the need for those bylaw officers. But when I looked at the PMO office coordinator position, you picked 3 municipalities. You picked Caledon, Georgina, and Whitby. And for myself, when I look at it, I'm wondering why you chose those municipalities as opposed to York Region, because I don't necessarily see any commonality between those 3 particular ones. So perhaps you can provide the rationale why you chose those municipalities as opposed to just doing the 9 in York Region.
Mr. Serio.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we chose those because those municipalities have project management offices. The other municipalities in York Region, we're not aware of any that have a project management office, so they wouldn't have been a good comparative. That's pretty much.
Because I mean, if I go by population, I mean, Whitby's got a population of 150,000. I don't necessarily see them as an apples to apples comparator for us. So that's why I want to just get some more insights. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Gallo.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the business case for the 2 additional, I guess it's 1 in 25 and 1 in 26 bylaw officers. It speaks to, I guess, additional resources required because of the introduction of things like Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, and Verbal. How do we see that as additional a need for additional bylaw officers as a result of those organizations that are existing today?
Mr. Saria?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, because we're putting a bylaw in place around it, there will be offenses attached to the bylaw. And as much as they are companies like Uber and Lyft, for example, we would have them follow certain regulations the way we did the taxi cab bylaw. And then so if they don't comply with the bylaw and the requirements to be an Uber or a Lyft, then we would be fining them and that would be an offense and then they would be non-compliance. And so we'd have to work through the process for that.
Counselor?
And is that something that's coming to council?
Mr. Saria?
Unless I missed it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we are intending to bring it sometime in the near future.
Counselor?
So you're assuming the council would be agreeing with that type of bylaw to be able to justify the officers to implement the bylaw that council hasn't seen yet. My preference is to wait perhaps until that happens. I don't see it. I mean, my general theory on these things, and it's probably not. Maybe it's not shared amongst everyone in the room, but I'm a proponent of less policing, not more policing, especially if it, again, especially in fire services, this is not a popular statement, that especially if we're looking to increase our revenue. To me, that's not a philosophy that I support. And I see here, $22,500 that would increase revenue as a result of these two each, as a result of these two officers. That doesn't inspire me, to be honest. And it may be only my opinion, and that's perfectly fine. But my view is let's wait and see how things roll out before moving forward on this.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner, second time.
Mr. Saria wanted to say something.
Pardon? No, go ahead.
Mr. Saria wanted to respond.
Okay. I didn't recognize her. Please share. Go ahead.
In response to Councillor Gallo's comments, from the beginning of this job for me, it's been bylaw complaints from residents about infractions of our bylaw of all kinds. And bylaw just has never been able to handle all of the complaints, in my opinion. And my very first council, there was discussion about this. And I said, well, will they pay for themselves? And the answer was yes. So it's a matter of upholding the bylaws that we've put in place for our town. And I agree with that. And, why would we have bylaws and not have anybody to enforce them? What's the point of having the bylaws? So I agree. I certainly agree with one and possibly a second. I need to have more discussion on it, but that's my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Kemp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought I'd be Councillor Thompson's parrot this time on the interesting snapshots. I was just looking at the snapshots and a couple of items. It'd be interesting to have the context. I was at first, when I saw the 53% female employees ratio, I thought that was specific to corporate services, and I was wondering why that figure is not pointed out in any of the other departments, but that's all of town of Aurora. Given the ratio in Canada of male to female is 49.5 to 50.5. I guess that's this is a good ratio, depending on whose perspective it is. Given we live in an age where there could potentially be more than two genders, there's LGBTQ, a couple more acronyms, I think, and him, his, he, Was there a particular reason why that stat is there? And is it a good thing to have in subsequent reports, given all the societal changes?
Mr. Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There's no particular reason why it was there, except that it is a good thing. In general, we did have it for the past few years, so I was just trying to do a comparison. But in general, we are thinking of the different genders and what's to come. And so our HR division is working on different stats, not necessarily that they will come out next year, but it is something that everyone has to start considering, and we are starting to move that way.
Counselor?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the other stat that really stood out to me was the retention rate of 97.06%. I'm not sure retention in terms of how many years that implies, but in general, in York Region, I'm hearing some positive things about Aurora being a great place to work compared to other municipalities, and that's something that we're very proud of. And so it'd be great to have an understanding of how the others, what the retention rates are of other municipalities. That may not, I'm not sure if that's even available, but given we know that we're one of the best municipalities to work, I'd be kind of curious about that. But thank you very much for the report.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 6.1.5 Finance, binder tab 10, Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Okay, I'm back up here again with the Finance Department. This one will be a bit longer. So getting started and getting into the Finance Department. So some of our 2024 accomplishments include the winning of the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the second time. So we've won both times that we have applied. And this award recognizes budgets as being communication vehicles. So not just a budget in itself, but being able to describe what the business overall is trying to achieve within the budget. We also successfully completed our audit for the 2023 financial statements, and that was a bit more of a challenging one, as we had part of our year in our old financial system and part of the year in the new financial system, and it went quite smoothly overall. We also worked with the Planning and Development Services team, the engineering team in particular, to co-lead the review and update to the town's asset management plan. So this took a lot of work from staff, also not just in engineering, but across the organization, as each department owns various different types of assets. We also implemented the network infrastructure at Aurora Town Square, so everyone can connect to some lightning fast Wi-Fi when they're in the building. And we also have the successful creation and adoption of our 2024 DC study and bylaw, with a few amendments to reflect the various changing legislation that we had to deal with throughout the year. Our key objectives for 2025 is to really expand upon the capabilities of our new financial system. Now that we're in there and we've been using it, we're exploring ways that we can expand upon its abilities to provide better reporting and better insights into the information that it captures within it. We are also looking to seek out and expand upon our grant opportunities, which is the position that Finance is requesting for 2025. This position will enable us to seek out more grants. Currently, this year, we're looking at applying for about 20 grants. And with the new position, we should be able to apply for about 3 times as many grants as we do today, as it will significantly increase the capacity within the team. We're going to continue our strong focus on cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is extremely important for maintaining and protecting our information. And we want to make sure that we're staying on the forefront of keeping our information protected as we move forward. And of course, as part of the budget, we continue our implementation of the fiscal strategy to ensure that we're on a fiscally sustainable path as we move forward. As you can see from the financial summary here, most of the Finance Department is covered by tax source funds. We're about 90% tax funded overall. The 10% of non-tax funds relates mostly to the revenues team, where they have some funds there for paying for administrative items, and some transfers to tax, and mortgage company fees, et cetera. Our changes to the budget outlook, we did not have very many changes at all overall. Some changes to our salary and benefit assumptions, the photocopier savings. Like I said, we've seen all of our budgets. Some small changes to some IT contracts, just to update for the latest amount. We did also increase our water and tax administration revenues. There were some ups and some downs, but overall our transfer to tax fees have been generating more revenue. So we've increased that in our budget as well. And we are also looking at working with our partnership for York Info partnership, which includes all 9 municipalities, York Region, the conservation authorities, and 1 or 2 school boards for implementing next generation 911 service. And that integrates with our Esri mapping system so that we can provide better and more accurate mapping information and location services when a 911 call is made. This provides an overview of our capital plan for the next year. As you can see, we're only looking for about $3 million in additional capital budget authority, with the plan to spend about almost $4 million in 2025. Most of the monies that we're looking to spend are related to asset management. So some of our key capital projects, particularly in our studies, we did our last IT strategic plan back in 2019. That plan set the foundation for the way that IT is operating today. And we are looking to now take that to the next stage and look at way IT can really fully partner as a business partner and really start to leverage some of the opportunities for staff across the organization. The other piece is we're looking to develop a disaster recovery plan specific to IT. And this could include different types of situations. A situation where, say, there's a fire at one of the buildings and we lose a data center is a very different situation from something like a cyber attack where we have to approach it differently. If we're ever in one of those situations, we need to get our systems back up and running very quickly. And we want to make sure we have a plan in place so that we just run with it as we go. Asset management, we are still continuing on the water meter replacement program, and that links into the report that was presented to Committee of Whole last week. We do have our IT equipment refresh, which includes end user equipment, so laptops, monitors, etc. Data center, which is our servers and switching capability, and then mobile is the iPads and phones that staff and council have. We are also looking to modernize our ARC serve tape backup solution. So what this is we have a bit of an antiquated solution right now. The new ones, the tapes are smaller, they run faster, and they will enable us to do more backups more frequently. So if we are in a situation where we need to recover our data, we have more access to more information and more recent information than we would today. And then lastly, one of the other key projects we're looking at is the work order management solution. So we are looking at mostly focusing on some of the process design and process mapping in this year and identifying what a solution may be. And the main focus for 2025 is actually going to be looking at fleets, because we've also got the customer relationship management solution that is going to be going forward at this year. And we don't want to attack from too many fronts at the same time, as staff will be quite busy with the CRM solution. And that's the end, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilor, can I get a mover and a seconder for receive for information? Councilor Gallo, Councilor Kim, any comments or questions on this tab? Councilor Ruiz.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Ms. Van Kessel or Wainwright Van Kessel. I want to focus a little bit on the new person. And I'm looking at the graphs that you provided on 10 and 10, 10, 10, 11, or sorry, 10, 11, and 12. It shows that there were about 42, I suppose, available applications. Can you tell me, I mean, it seems to me that, is this a matter of the capacity of the existing person who's doing the grant writing, or because frankly, there's 22 applications out of 42 potential applications. Are we just not being able to track them down and therefore not make an application through Mayor?
Mayor Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So it is definitely a capacity issue. Right now, the person who does our grants also has other activities within their job, and they can only spend up to about a third of their time working on grants. So we have to be fairly strategic now in which ones we apply for. So we generally go after the ones that are a higher dollar value. What this position as a full-time dedicated position will do is enable us to really go after and seek out many more grants and hopefully have much more success.
Counselor.
And if I look at the on 1012, I think it suggests that there was somewhere around $3 million in grants that were acquired as a result of the applications that were submitted. Do we have some targets on the wall for a dedicated person and what kind of grant revenue you could expect in 2025? Through you, Mayor.
Mayor Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we don't have a specific amount of revenue that we've targeted, but what we are planning on doing is seeking out a lot more grants. So right now we're going after a lot of these grants that are the higher dollar value ones, but sometimes it comes down to financial need of the municipality is one of the factors, or there could be other political factors at play. Whereas there are a lot of other smaller to mid-sized grants available that are have different rules associated with them. So this will give us the opportunity to really go after a much larger breadth of grants and hopefully receive additional funds through that.
Yes.
So if I can unpack that, you said that the person who's doing the grant writing now is using about 1/3 of their time to do this. So if we're going to have a dedicated person full-time on this, that we should at least expect to have 3 times the grant revenue. It's good leverage of person's time if we're successful. Is that correct? Through you, Mayor.
Mayor Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. So this will add like a full-time capacity to writing grants. So that should increase the number of grants we actually receive as we will be seeking out many more grants.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel. Along a similar line, I think that I'd be interested to see how successful this person is a year from now. So perhaps in the finance at a glance, you could include that snapshots in terms of how many grant applications we applied for and how much we were successful in achieving. So that way we can better evaluate the net result of the position. I just want to understand the breakdown of how the position, how you've calculated the net tax impact. So page 1011, you indicated the expenditure being the salary, and then you have user fees and revenues to reduce it to the net tax impact of 15,700. Perhaps you can provide a more detailed explanation through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Mr. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the expectation is this position, a number of the grants that they will be working on is to support capital projects. So part of their salary is recovered through capital reserves as they would be working on capital items, and including and then also part of it is for some of the grants will be related to the water, wastewater and stormwater area. And we do recoveries through water, wastewater and stormwater reserves for staff that work on those areas as well.
Council.
Thank you.
Councilor Gilliland.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, have you considered utilizing any AI technology with grant writing or some sort of hybrid technology with a grant writer?
Mr. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is one of the areas that we could explore with this position, leveraging some AI to help us with some of the solution. We are starting to use it to some degree in writing some of the proposals, but again, a person needs to be able to go through and read through it. And some of the grant applications can be quite complex. So you have to make sure that there's a person in there reviewing and looking at the information carefully.
Councilor.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up through you, do you think that this is something that you could also introduce at the same time with this new position? So it could allow that person to take on even more responsibility within the grant writing opportunity out there with the assistance of AI?
Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, every opportunity we get to expand upon how many grants we can apply for, we're definitely interested in exploring that. Well, we are as a team overall, the team Aurora is looking at ways we can look at AI, and that's part of also what's going to be in the technology strategic plan as well about how the town looks at and explores AI.
Councilor.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, Ms. Van Kessel, I just wanted to know about the IT strategic plan for 2025. I know that we had passed a strategic plan, I believe it was in 2019 or so, and it was a really, really, really large project that we had undertaken, and we had quite a bit of projects under our belt for subsequent years thereafter. And I'm just curious as to, moving forward, is this something that can wait so it can help us fulfill what we've already completed? Because I feel like we've just finished some major projects with this, and we're just starting all over again. And I just feel like, is this something that could wait a couple of years? I know we're under a lot of pressure right now with inflation and everything else. Is this an area to where maybe we could wait a couple of years and then relook at this based on the information that we've already got, at least in 2019?
Mayor Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the plan that we had from 2019, we've been tracking our progress on that. And there was a report that came out last year where we're already at 93% completion of all the items within the plan. We are expecting to pretty much have that plan done by the end of the year. One of the lingering items is the town hall Wi-Fi, but that's been a bit of a supply chain issue that we've had, and we're going to get there early next year. So this is the ideal time to really look at where we go next. The first strategic plan we did for IT, it was really about setting the foundation, it's the structure of IT, how IT was to operate, and really look at replacing technology and putting the right technology in place so that we could then go to the next level. And we're at that stage where we've completed the items in the plan, and we really need to set that path for the next period of time of where do we go next? Where do we invest in IT, and how do we move forward? Also, the time when we did the plan in 2019, there was still a lot of on-premise solutions that were done. So software that was sitting on our servers, whereas now we're moving into a much more cloud environment. Cybersecurity is very much more a prevalent factor in the way we go forward. And also, how do we leverage AI and move forward? I think there's a lot of value in moving forward with the IT strategic plan. I think it will really help us as we benefit us over the next 5 years at least.
Councillor.
Thank you. And it sounds all exciting and everything. Through Mr. Mayor, Ms. Van Kessel, you mentioned also the AI technology. And I know there's a lot of conferences going on right now, especially internationally, to help educate people, whether it's municipalities, governments, corporate entities, and so forth. Is that something that would be a part of the strategic plan, or our staff being able to at least capitalize on? Obviously, I think it should go hand in hand. I certainly wouldn't want to be pushing forward too soon, too quick, since technology is changing so fast.
Mayor Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So what the plan will do is look at some of the governance around AI and some recommendations of how does the town move forward in leveraging AI as we go forward. We are using it to some degree right now with some of our cybersecurity tools, but this would be, how do town staff leverage it? What is the governance around it? What are the appropriate AI tools that staff should have access to and should be using? And we need to look at that as we move forward, because not all tools are created equal.
Councillor.
Thank you. And just finally, last thing, so just kind of sparked me. And in addition to the smart technologies, and I know I had a motion a while ago about the governance of that and data privacy and so forth, is that something that would be included in this strategic plan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So when we look at how we store and maintain our own information and the security around that is part of the strategic plan. There's the other piece is with information privacy that falls more in legislative services, particularly with privacy laws and how we apply those overall. We are not at the stage where we're going to be looking at putting cameras externally everywhere. This is more about how we move forward from a technology base and an infrastructure base.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Gerner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. We're fortunate right now, there's a lot of grant opportunities. But we never know the future, and they might dry up. And then we have this staff who's dedicated to doing grants. So then what happens?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we've consistently had more grant opportunities out there than what we've had capacity to apply for. So I can't see there being a shortage of work for this individual. Also, we're finding that a lot of the provincial and federal programs now, they tend to require more grant applications than money is just handed to municipalities. So we need to make sure that we can support those reporting requirements overall too.
Counselor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, but can you answer the what if?
Mayor Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as we look at the organization, like within finance overall, we continually evaluate to determine where the best use for our resources is, and say in the future with any of the positions within the department, if it's not the best focus for where the department's moving forward, the position could be repurposed or look at some other financial roles within the team.
Counselor.
But we still have that person employed, even if their position becomes not useful. It's just a comment. With respect to objectives in progress, about efficiencies in procurement, I just wanted to ask if we are still working on green procurement.
Mayor Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we are planning on doing more work on green procurement. The procurement team was quite occupied when the financial system was being implemented, and you should never underestimate the amount of work a procurement person is involved in implementing a financial system. It was more than what we expected for sure. And yeah, it is something that is on our horizon, and we are looking out for green opportunities and partnering with the engineering team as well, with their climate change people.
Thank you.
Counselor.
And on 10/18, stay current on cybersecurity initiatives. A roadmap was put in place to fill any gaps and stay current on cybersecurity. How quickly would we be able to fill any gaps that were found?
Mayor Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So right now we've implemented some services. So SEAM service, which is basically a security information and event management system. So that's basically a tool that we've outsourced. There's AI technology that looks at the information that's coming in. It looks at our network, it looks at our system, and it identifies any significant issues within our systems that we can then remedy immediately. We also do cybersecurity penetration testing on an annual basis. That identifies any potential weaknesses we may have, and we take these very seriously, and we do address them as quickly as we can. One of the latest things we're doing on cybersecurity is we've had geofencing rolled out so that we can't have anyone accessing from outside of Canada unless they are known to us, and make sure we know in advance. And then also the rollout of multi-factor authentication to help protect us from other cyber events. However, those threat actors are getting trickier and sneakier every day. So we do need to adapt and stay on the forefront of this as we move forward.
Counselor.
Thank you. That makes me feel quite confident.
You, Counselor Kim.
Thank you. I really appreciate the illustration on page 10-12 regarding the grant funding available versus approved. It tells a great story in terms of 2020. The grant success is quite high, but I'm sure with the business of COVID in 2020, there were fewer grant opportunities available due to how busy the federal and provincial governments were. And subsequently, due to the conditions, it was probably quite high that we were going to get those. Every municipality would get the few grants that were available. And as we go into 2021, seems like our success rate was 50% approximately, based on the dollar value. And then 2022 and 23, it declines. And it could be declining because we have few resources, perhaps one grant management advisor who is applying for a lot, but perhaps the quality wasn't there because of the quantity, or we just didn't apply to as many as we could have. I think if we continue this chart, it would definitely tell a story in terms of how we're doing. I would be a proponent of a grant management advisor. I think it generally pays for itself. Similar to a CRA auditor, they pay for themselves. And so Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, I think one of the metrics that the not-for-profit industry has is if you raise 4 or 5 times your salary, then it's rated as a successful year. Does the team have any metric that they plan on leveraging? Do we leverage that now, or are we planning on leveraging? Should we go ahead and hire this additional staff member?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as we go through, if we do move forward with this position, then we'll look at the metrics and look at reporting back on our success, the number of grants we can apply to, the increase in the number of grants, and then also look at our success rate overall in number of grants, but also in dollars.
Council.
Yeah, great, thank you. Given all the, if I use the fish diagram and the fisherman, given all the fish out there, I'd certainly be a proponent of hiring an extra fisherman.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 6.1.6 operational services. This is binder tab 11. Ms. Steenkamp.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have the pleasure of presenting the operational services budget for 25 and 26. We have a lengthy list of accomplishments, both on the document tonight and off for 2024. We constructed 1.4 kilometers of trails and 140 meters of boardwalk. Oh, there we go. Okay. Too far. And that was between the David Tomlinson Nature Reserve and the Butternut Trail. We also acquired 13.24 hectares of parkland for future recreation, and that'll be both passive and active recreation opportunities, and both those opportunities exist. Fleet increased to 150 vehicles in 2024 to support frontline work. That was an acquisition of an additional 10 vehicles in 2024. We had the completion of John Abel Park and started the construction on our first fully accessible playground at Town Park. I'd like to report it's moving along quickly, and we should have that grand opening come Christmas. We also completed the railing retaining wall repair along Yonge Street between Maple and Catherine Avenue. That's the frontage in front of the church, and it was long overdue. We did stormwater management, pond deficiency mitigation, including Phragmites removal to increase capacity of the ponds. Parking lot maintenance and repairs in various locations, and implemented the windrow program for removal of snow windrows for seniors and individuals with disabilities. This is continuing in 2024 and 25 as a pilot again. And in 24-25, it's with a $100 user fee and subsidized program to offset those who are eligible. Some of our 2025 key objectives include the modernization and updating of operational assets to support asset management plan objectives and requirements. So this is the ongoing recording of assets in the field. Parks was somewhat deficient in where those assets are located. So staff have been actively GPSing assets, recording those in the past year, and we'll continue that into 2025. This ensures that we are replacing and refurbishing assets and infrastructure and ensuring that service levels are maintained. So it's important for us to have accurate recording of those assets. Implementation recommendations by improving policies, bylaws, and best practices to increase the canopy cover to 40% by 2034. So we'll be coming back to council in early of 2025 with a compensation policy review along with bylaw improvements to strengthen that bylaw to help us meet those 40% targets. We also have done ongoing condition assessment of sanitary infrastructure related to structural and infiltration deficiencies. This is ongoing. This is something we do yearly. It's important that we do this because it actually improves the integrity and the life cycle of those pipes in the ground. Another objective is to mitigate an outstanding backlog of failing concrete streetlight pole infrastructure identified with low condition ratings. We're about 100 poles that have been identified as a low condition rating. So we're looking to get those replaced and back in a safe condition on the streets. Continued service discussions and recommendations related to waste and anticipated transition of recycling to provincial authority at the end of 2025. So as council is aware, we'll be transitioning in the end of 2025 with the province taking over full recycling collection in 2026. And in addition, we have additional staff to support continued growth, contractual obligations, and new enhanced service level initiatives. So this is an overview of the budget change summary, and it illustrates the net levy impacts between 22 and 2026. While operational impacts the levy, a large portion of our budget is offset through water wastewater user rates. The changes to the budget outlook mainly are attributed to contractual obligations. Many of our contracts are 3 to 4, even 5 years in length, and many of them came due in 2024. So we realized some significant increases in some of those contracts, and that's a main driver for most of the changes in operations. In addition, there is a crossing guard, and that's for the new school on Hartwell Way that just opened up this year. And the Windrow pilot project is also reflected there, along with 2 additional sidewalk winter maintenance routes, which were approved through budget earlier this season. The water wastewater proposed rate budget is grossly unchanged. It's within a few $100s of any change that there was. And the proposed 2024 capital budget, the 2025 capital cash flow, we're looking at just a little over $16 million in operations, and 9.3 is attributed to growth and new. It should be noted that some of those projects are ones that are currently in the process of construction. So for instance, Shepherd's Bush, St. Anne's School, those are large capital investments, and that's reflected in that. And then some of the key capital projects for operations, I tried to highlight something from across most of the divisions. So we have the ongoing structural lining of sanitary mains and laterals. That's just to assist in extending the lifespan of those important pieces of infrastructure. We have parking lot maintenance, various lots as per the parking lot study. There's LED sports light upgrades. We did a study in 2024, actually 23 now I think about it. It was 2023 on upgrades of all the sports field lights to LED. So we're chunking it off throughout the projected next few years, and Summit Park and the Bowling Green are highlighted for 2025. There's also bowling green improvements. The bowling green has been in place for a number of years, and there's retaining walls and gutters that are that were previously constructed of 6x6 that are just degrading and need some repairs. There's a playground, picnic shelter, court replacement. It should actually say court construction. So that's for pickleball courts, moving of the playground at Fleury Park, and shelter. We are also proposing potentially a splash pad in that space because the Parks and Recreation Master Plan illustrates that we don't have anything west of Young Street. So this is an ideal location because it's a community-based park. There's full facilities there with playground, the washroom, the arenas there as well. So it would be an ideal location. We're also potentially looking at putting in a fully accessible playground there. So this is for construction in 2025 of this, and we're just in the midst of park design right now. We also have the playground replacement and walkway repaving at Tom's Park. That park was constructed in 1985, and the last time it had a playground upgrade was over 20 years ago. Fleet is looking for a trailer mounted valve exerciser and excavation unit. This will be used primarily by the water department, but also for roads. The excavation part of it, we removed our vac truck from the fleet complement a couple of years ago. It's a very expensive piece of equipment. This is significantly lower in cost and still allows us to do excavation where we can't get in with a large truck through our vac contractor. So it allow us to put signs in, and also the most important part is to exercise the valves. It's a manual process now for staff. So as you can appreciate, the more you work them, the better they function. So this will help us make the rounds a little bit quicker. And lastly, the road monitoring system. We'll be putting one in the northwest corner of town. We already have one along John West Way, and one in the south end of, I believe it's down on Elderberry. So the weather can be quite different between the north and south of town. So this will help us deal with some of the road conditions. That's it.
Thank you. Can I get a mover and a seconder to receive for information? Councillor Gardner, Councillor Weiss, any comments, questions on binder tab 11? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor to Ms. Teenkamp. You had mentioned the playground and your asset management plan with respect to Fleury Park and how it included splash pad, and it also included fully accessible. And then you also mentioned pickleball. And so I'm just trying to understand the scope of the project. I know last budget, we had a line item specifically for pickleball courts. Is that including the exact in this assessment? Because I thought it was a separate item, because right now this is being presented as a new park versus the pickleball courts, or do we have a separate budget set aside from that?
Yeah.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, no, the pickleball courts are included within this. So it'll be an 8-plex that we're looking to place where the existing playground is. And then that existing playground will be moved to the front of the park.
Councillor.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So just within the presentation, is it already in a design stage right now then, since this is something we did talk about last year? And I'm asking just because I know the people from the pickleball community has been eagerly asking me about what's happening in the next stage and what to expect.
Steenkamp.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, last year we had the funding approved for consulting. So we're currently working with the consultant, and they have some draft design that we're working through right now.
Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Weiss.
Yes, thanks. Couple of questions here. The windrows in here, and I know we're finished. At least November 1st was the final day. Is there any change in your projections? Because last year we had a very mild winter and we had a lot of people on. Now we have a bit of a financial disincentive for some people to join in. So can you give us an update on that and whether it should be changed in the budget here through you?
Steenkamp.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly the uptake has been decreased from last year. We had about 1,100 applicants this time last year. We're just in around 500 currently. Of that 500, 88 of them were subsidized, so around roughly 18% of the number of applicants that we've had, and we have a revenue of 38,000 to date. So that pretty much covers a salary and a half for the 2 staff members that we'll need to retain to complete those 500 windrows.
Councillor.
So no change in what you've put here is what I just heard there. So thanks. You mentioned Fleury, and Councillor Gillen was talking about Fleury Park. Have we gone through any community information work? You said they're in early designs right now. Have the residents been identified? Have they been interested in this? Have you had any meetings with them? Because it was very successful what you did with Town Park. So through you, I'd just like to see if there's been a community information meeting or something planned.
Steenkamp?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, there hasn't yet to date. We need some design work completed and some concepts to present to the residents, because naturally people are very visual and they like to see what the potential is. And so as part of that, then we will hold, once we have those created, then we'll hold an information session. We're kind of striving for around the middle of January.
Counselor?
Okay, thank you. And I see on page 11.9, we're still talking about parks, ice rink liners and other minor adjustments. I'm just concerned about the metrics of the number of days that we have now with climate change and the rest of it. How many days of use? Do we keep track of the number of days of use for each one of these rinks? Because I'm just wondering about not only the cost of putting them in, but also the cost of managing them. So I don't see any management costs in here. So I assume that they're going to be absorbed by your general budget through you to Mrs. Steenkamp.
Steenkamp?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, certainly last year was the fewest number of days that we've ever had within the town of Aurora, but it varies year to year. Some years we've had 70, 80 days. Other years we've had as low as 30. Last year was certainly an anomaly. But when it comes to maintenance, those costs are just mainly it's labor intensive. So it's factoring out of our labor costs.
Counselor?
Okay, that's it for now. Thank you.
Counselor Gardner?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I also had the comment about public consultation for Fleury Park. It speaks here about sanitary sewers. Let me just find it. Ongoing assessment of sanitary infrastructure. And it from what's said here, there are deficiencies in that system. I'm on 1125.
Steenkamp?
It's 1125, middle of the page, sanitary sewer condition. So I was just worried about, I was just concerned about structural deficiencies. And did we get a report on that? Will we have a report on that? Any information you can provide through Mr. Mayor?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we do ongoing condition assessments of the sanitary lines, and that's part of our preventative maintenance, and some of our structural lining works relate to that.
Counselor?
Thank you. I was surprised that we need 100 streetlight poles replaced. Were you surprised by that through you, Mr. Mayor?
Steenkamp?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I actually wasn't totally surprised. We have thousands of street poles, so it's
Okay.
the number isn't too surprising.
Counselor?
So it's a small percent then. The urban forestry study on page it's 11-12. Is this something that has come to council yet? If not, when will it be coming?
Steenkamp?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we completed the urban forestry study in 2024, which was presented to council. Last week at the committee of the whole meeting, we presented another report, just asking for council's approval to move forward with looking at the compensation valuation, doing a best practices review, and looking at the bylaw as a whole and whether it should be a little bit more restrictive to help support the 40% canopy cover. Because if we have those things in place, we'll be able to better meet that target in 2024 or 2034, I should say.
Counselor?
Thank you through Mr. Mayor. And I know that there is a council motion that we're committed to the 40%, reaching a 40% canopy cover. In order to do that, it looks to me like we have to update several of our policies. And am I correct in assuming that we need to update those policies, like the tree compensation policy and the bylaw? We need to update all of those things in order to be able to achieve a 40% tree canopy?
Steenkamp?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly they are the largest things that can impact us moving forward and achieving that. There are many other things that we can do that were part of the recommendations that staff are actively working on regularly. There's a lot of community grant programs. There's partnering with community groups. There's a number of things that we can try to achieve. There's a large portion of it because when you look at urban canopy, it's really the urban forestry study speaks to not only just private trees, but municipal trees as well. So there's a significant proportion of that is private. So it's us looking for maybe some initiatives and some maybe subsidizing. It's putting some things in place to encourage people to plant. There's a large education component as part of this, but the first step is to work on our compensation, work on our bylaw. And if those are a little bit more restrictive, a little more cumbersome, then people are less likely to remove trees as easily.
Thank you.
Counselor?
And when might we see an updated bylaw come to council?
Steenkamp?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we're looking to bring that early 2025 and hopefully have it implemented prior to spring.
Counselor?
Thank you very much.
Counselor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question through Mr. Mayor to Ms. Steenkamp. In the asset management plan, I didn't see any reference to the skateboard park refurbishment or maintenance. I'm not sure. I know it was in Ilmar's territory in ops many years ago. So I'm just assuming it's still in ops. I'm not sure if it moved over to Parks and Rec.
Steenkamp?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly it still does sit with operations. You'll recall from a report maybe a year ago that we have opted just to monitor it and maintain. We can maintain it within our operational budget currently. The value is minimal, but if it comes to a point where it becomes unsafe or it's not feasible, we'll be returning to council with looking at the next strategy, whether it's full replacement or partial replacement of the skateboard park.
Counselor?
Thank you. On that report, I haven't read it recently, but I thought it was just repair and maintain over the next couple of years. But I thought we had earmarked a certain capital budget for it, but I guess not. We're just waiting for staff recommendation at that point. Okay, thank you.
You, Counselor Reese?
Yes, thank you. It's about the two business cases you had that you put forward for the new hires. And they're very compelling, particularly with the water one, because the impact of not doing something has some safe water issues that we all want to take care of. But I'm interested in the graph at the bottom of 1115 and looking at the proposed versus the current number of kilometers of water, sanitary storm and mains. It looks to me like we're just about right with the amount of people that we have for the number of kilometers that we have to do, yet we're asking for another person here. So maybe I'm reading something wrong, and maybe through you, we can get Ms. Steenkamp to explain the comparison of our number of kilometers per staff with respect to Stouffville and East Gwillimbury, for example.
Steenkamp?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we're somewhat deficient right now. It takes a fair bit of work to do all the sampling, and the amount of road kilometers and sanitary and sewer is increasing. This accounts for the growth coming out into the future, and this position will support. We don't. I believe we have another water wastewater, but it wouldn't be till 2032, 35, somewhere in around that range is when we're forecasting another one. So this will carry us through for the next number of years.
Okay, for the future. And likewise on the other one that you have for the full-time flexible operator in roads. I noticed in 2025, and I recall that we increased the number of plow routes to help service the community. Or in 2024, we had the same, but now we're going to 2025 with 12. So is this simply better service that our residents can expect from having another person on the same kind of a plow route? How can you explain that for me and for residents as well who are paying for it?
Steve Camp?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's not just about physically having a blade down and plowing the snow. There's a lot of other factors that go into winter maintenance. There's patrolling. Our roads need to be patrolled 24 hours a day. So it's staffing that. It's also staffing removal of snow. As you can appreciate, a lot of snow piles up in certain years and needs to be removed off the streets and sidewalks, the right of ways. So we have safe pedestrian travel and vehicular travel. So it's not just specific to a driver in a plow.
Counselor?
So there's just additional services that we'll be able to provide when we got extra manpower to do that.
This
or
is
person
me.
power.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. This is actually continuing to maintain the service level. It's not anything additional over and above.
Counselor?
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Any other comments, questions? All the vote, all those in favor? Opposed, that carries. Council, we can either take our break or we can push through. We got 2 more presentations. Keep going. I like that. Keep going. Keep going. I see majority saying keep going. So next, 6.1.7, Planning and Development Services. This is binder tab 12. Mr. Ramuno.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Here to present the Planning and Development Services budget. Okay. First, start off with some of the key accomplishments in 2024. I think you also heard from Ms. T. Camp, part of the real estate component of planning. We were involved in the acquisition of 28 acres for future parkland. We also development and launch of the Economic Development Strategic Plan occurred as well. In 2024, York Region approved the Town of Aurora's new official plan, and it was the first plan approved by York Region as part of this latest round of conformity exercises. The other soon-to-be accomplishment is the bringing forward in December Aurora's first affordable housing action plan. We had a successful public engagement of that plan. Some positive comments. So we're at a point where we've got a final plan that we will be reporting to council in December, hopefully for a final endorsement. We also completed the first active transportation master plan for the town and the natural capital asset management plan. We were also received the Conservation Authority 2024 Healthy Water Award for improving local waterways, ecosystems, and access to nature through the Willow Farm Lane, Jones Court, Dublin Place, and the Henderson Drive Wildlife Passage project. Some of the key 2025 objectives that we're hoping to embark on First is the stormwater and stream master plan update, the promenade streetscape detailed design, and the town's first ever completion of the water and wastewater master plan that we're hoping to kick off in the coming year. Pedestrian crossing study, the community planning permit system, the update of our comprehensive zoning bylaw review that we're also expecting to launch in early 2025. We're expecting to complete the townwide parking study as well this coming year, and the completion of our Heritage Grant Program. As far as the sort of budget change, there is no significant change here. You're probably all aware that the planning development services generates significant revenues through our building permit fees, planning application fees, engineering review fees to essentially cover our operating costs. So there's really not much to see here. Next slide is changes to the budget. Again, nothing significant here. Full-time staff complement remains the same at 44, no ask for new employees. And again, there's really not much in the way of any significant pressures here. With respect to the capital budget, we are looking at the budget change here is an addition of $20 million in 2025. And we're expecting to spend in 2025 a total of just shy of $37 million. And the majority of those projects, I believe we have about 9 or 10 road improvement projects and a couple of parking lot rehab projects as well. I also have, if there are any later on any detailed questions about some of these capital projects, I have Nancy Fleming, our manager of engineering capital delivery, that could provide some further details on that, on some of those projects. So the last slide here is again just some of the key capital projects that I've listed here. A number of again, water main, stormwater, and road rehab projects, specifically McLeod, Gilbank, Marksberry, and Lacey over at the western part of town. We're planning to reconstruct Center Street from Young to Spruce, rehab of a couple of stormwater management ponds, update of our stormwater and stream master plan, complete our pedestrian crossing study, our community planning permit system, comprehensive zoning bylaws I mentioned, and our town facility waste audit reduction plan. So that's it for planning development services. If there are any questions, we'll be.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Get someone to move and second just to receive information. Councillor Kim, Councillor Thompson. Any comments or questions before I go to Councillor Reese first? Mr. Romano, you forgot one 2024 accomplishment. The fact that you guys finished the required housing needs assessment, which is very, very important because it is a requirement. It's my understanding it's a requirement by the federal government in regards to any funding, and the fact that we did it in-house and other municipalities. I think some of the examples that you pointed out to me is like Guelph has spent $100,000 on consultants to assist them in preparing this. And Richmond Hill apparently has 7 staff dedicated to working on this. And we have done a presentation, Adam Robb has done a presentation to other municipalities so that they could use Aurora as a template in moving forward and save them costs. So I think we should ask some of those municipalities maybe to give us a little bit of money since they're saving. Using the work that Adam, Rob, and your team have done. So it's quite an accomplishment. So thank you on that. You missed that one. I thought I'd point that out. Thank you. Councillor Thompson, or Councillor Reese, sorry. Your name disappeared there for a sec. I didn't realize your mic was on. Go ahead.
Thanks, it's okay. Through you, Mayor, I'm just asking about pedestrian crossing study because I've put in a couple of requests for Brentwood to be considered pedestrian crossing, and I know that's a regional road, and we're having some issues about improvements on those roads, but it also doesn't appear here, at least it's not named here as a potential. So is that
Yeah,
Nancy,
Nancy, go ahead.
Ms. Fleming? Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Weiss. So that is, you're correct, is a regional road. It is also an arterial road, so it's 6 lanes of traffic. We wouldn't necessarily look at a PXO for that type of pedestrian crossing. We would look at an intersection. So we're in discussions with the region about that.
Council.
So you're considering signalization there as opposed to just a pedestrian crosswalk, and that will come prior to any kind of changes to the road width or anything that may or may not come from the region vis-a-vis road width widening.
Yes.
So you.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Yes, thanks.
You, Councilor Thompson.
My question may be best answered by Mr. Natarosny, so perhaps Councilor Gardner first.
Okay, Councilor Gardner, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't think my questions are for you. We are talking about energy and climate change through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Mino. I just wanted to know if the green development standards and the green infrastructure, I mean, one would think that they do have a direct effect on energy savings. I'm sorry, whoever would like to answer that, I would like to know if they do have an effect on the energy savings.
Nancy? Or Mr. Ramono, did you want to?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think Councilor Garnier, with respect to our green development standards that have been approved by council. So that's a document that we require all new developments to follow. And there's a certain sort of a list of criteria that they need to check off as part of any development application review, either as plan of subdivision or a site plan application. So we are having our developers and applicants follow that. With respect to whether we have we can measure whether there are, any improvements. It's probably too early to tell. I'm sure there is going to be over the long term. A lot of these developments haven't been built out or haven't been sort of in operation fully assumed just yet. But we have had those green development standards, I think, in place now for at least 3 or 4 years. And so, yeah.
Wow.
Councilor.
I think it would be appropriate then to add that through such at the very bottom of on page 10 through such plans as add that as one of the plans that we've developed. Through such plans as the Corporate Environmental Action Plan, Energy Conservation and Demand Management Plan, etc. I think that our green energy plan could be added to that list as an accomplishment. Thank you. The stormwater and stream management master plan update. When, if we approve it in the budget through Mr. Mayor, when do you hope that will be, when the work will be done on it, the consulting work, and will be coming before council?
Nancy?
Bless you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Gardner. So we're actually starting to put together the scope of work now. In anticipation that will get approved through the 2025 budget process, with us releasing that in Q1 of 2025.
Councilor.
Oh, not soon. Thank you very much. Something that nobody has mentioned to date, and I think this is probably, I don't know who this should go to, but at the top of page 1212. We're talking about 53.5 million of core infrastructure projects. Will not be included in the asset management plan. that we weren't able to fit them in because there's not sufficient funding. This is, to me, completely inappropriate for the quality of life of our residents. I manage a lot of them will have to do with roads. I don't think, oh yes, roads is your thing too, isn't it? Especially with climate change, they're predicting with the freeze thaw cycles that the roads are going to buckle. There's going to be a lot more repair work to do. So is that something that's not on the table to be taken care of?
It's, oh, Ms. Warner, I guess.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So recently we did the update to the asset management plan, which had a financial strategy associated with it. I believe that report came back in September. So that set out how much we're going to be contributing to reserves over the next couple of years. And there's going to be another reports coming forward in the future to look at the more long-term plan. The challenge with this is there's the backlog of infrastructure that needs to be dealt with. And as we can continue to contribute more to our reserves and increase that on an annual basis, it will start to alleviate some of that backlog, but that backlog is going to exist until we get to the point where we're fully funded on asset management.
Counselor.
Through Mr. Mayor to the ladies, when did we start to experience this backlog? I don't remember it being discussed at council.
Through you,
Mr. Mayor, I think the backlog's been there for quite some time. It's just that the asset management plans that we've done recently have been clearly articulating that this backlog does exist.
Counselor.
Thank you. Isn't the federal gas tax money we get, isn't that meant to help take care of it? And did it not? Were we so far behind that that money did not help us? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Warner, I guess.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we do receive Canadian Community Building Fund, which is the new name for the gas tax. There have been some recent changes to that fund as well, where it is looking at more at housing enabling infrastructure. So there are some changes that are happening there. We also do receive some funds from the Ontario government as well to support some asset management, but it is nowhere near enough to what we actually need to meet our asset management obligations.
Counselor.
Okay, so to me, this is a pretty scary paragraph. But perhaps you could send me, or I could listen to the meeting again. Perhaps you could send me an email with you had some ideas about how we were going to try and fix this. So perhaps you could send that to me so I don't have to watch the meeting again. Thank you. And thank you, Nancy, thank you as well. I think you've done an excellent job.
Councillor, I was just going to add to that point. That's the reason why FCM and AMO have been strongly advocating for fair share for municipalities when it comes to infrastructure dollars. And they're asking both the provincial and federal governments to make sure that they start to provide predictable funding for municipalities on an ongoing basis. It's not just the previous gas tax. That's not enough to fund all the municipalities in their infrastructure. As everyone knows, and that we talked about many times here at this table, we collect 9 to 11 cents on every tax dollar, yet we're responsible for over 60% of the infrastructure. And at that rate, it is unsustainable. And so therefore we need a new deal with both the provincial and federal government, and both FCM and AMO, as well as us at the municipal level, are advocating very strongly to both levels of government to provide that fund.
Well, you know, to be in a position to approve a budget where 53 million of core infrastructure is not going to be taken care of, I don't know if I can approve a budget like that. And if we really haven't discussed this in the past, as far as I know, maybe a bit, but but we've never discussed the amount of money that we don't have for our infrastructure, and talking about quality of life, roads, water, wastewater, stormwater management. I think that that's what we should have been spending money on.
Okay.
And
look-
not, these are necessities as opposed to frills.
I look forward to seeing the amendments to add these projects.
That's not the point. The point is, that's not the point, Mr.
you
Mayor.
feel-
Perhaps you missed it. That's okay.
If you feel that strongly, Councillor, you put forward an amendment. That's the budget process.
There's no way to amend this, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Thompson.
I'm not sure whether this question is best addressed to Mr. Nadarozny or Mr. Ramuno, but one of the accomplishments listed was the completion of the townwide fiber installation project by Telemax. I think one of the goals was to improve access for the residents to high-speed internet. There were some gaps throughout the community. And I just want to know if we've had any initial feedback yet, or whether or not there'll be a report coming forward just to I guess clarify the success of it and whether or not it's adequately addressed those gaps that were identified previously.
Mr. Seo.
Through Mr. Mayor, so I just recently had a meeting with senior executives from Telmax, and Nancy probably be in a better position to talk about some of the details in terms of where the project's at. But in general, they have indicated that they are nearing the final completion in Aurora. Most of the infrastructure has been put in place. There remains some work around landscaping and clean up a bit that depending on how the season works may stretch into the spring when it's finally done, but they seem to be on top of that. We've had very few complaints about the process, quite frankly. I anticipated a lot more given the magnitude of the project and the time frame, but it's been a pretty good process that they've gone through. In terms of the in terms of getting this network up and running, they are in a couple of areas they have been offering the service, but they haven't lit up everything yet. The infrastructure is in place, so it's very preliminary to assess the success in terms of the marketplace uptake of their product. But we can certainly get some information from them on that to the extent they're willing to provide it, since they are in a competitive business. I'm not sure how much they would want to discuss publicly, but we can certainly ask them, and they've been very forthcoming with information so far whenever we've asked for stuff. So
Councillor.
find that out.
Thank you. And maybe it's more for 2025, but it's less about, I guess, their individual uptake, but more about ensuring that whatever corner of Aurora you live in, that you have access to the same level of service throughout the town. And I think that, prior to Telemax coming in, there were reports from residents that, not everybody had equal access. And in this day and age, when more and more people work from home or utilize the internet for a wide variety of functions and data, I just want to make sure that now, once the completion of this project is that if we were to look at a coverage map, we can confidently say that all Aurorans have access to a higher degree of high-speed internet.
Mr. Seo.
Through Mr. Mayor, the one comment I'll make on that is I know there is at least one area where the federal government and the provincial government gave subsidy to another provider to provide that enhanced service in some of the southernmost areas of Aurora. And given that has sort of been protected by virtue of this funding for that provider, and I don't believe they've moved ahead with that infrastructure. So there still will remain some areas where there is not great connectivity. We'll have to see if there's a deadline imposed by the federal and provincial governments in terms of when that should be done. But I know that there is a bit of a lag on that. I haven't had a current update on that, but I know that situation still exists in some areas by virtue of the special funding that was given to other providers.
Councillor.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Reese.
Yes, just one last question on 12-12 in the paragraph above the graph. I've spoken to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel about this unfunded category, but I'd like her to explain what the unfunded category is, because there will be people who will be asking why this is no longer funded. And I think there's some nuances here that probably should be explained. So through you to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a few projects in planning and development services which have been identified as unfunded. So they are currently sitting outside of the 10-year capital plan. And the reason for this is some of these projects would require significant tax funded investment from the town. And we really do need support from upper levels of government to really invest in these growth projects because they are typically growth in nature. Some of the projects, particularly in the trails in the latest development charge study, previous study, they were higher proportion of development charges would pay for the project, but now the study recognizes a larger benefit to existing. And what that translates into, you need more non-development charge sources of funding to pay for it. Non-development charges includes tax levies, so that could be from our growth of new reserve, but then that comes out of our tax increases that we have on an annual basis. Or the other option is seeking out other grants opportunities to pay for them. So what we were saying here is for these projects, because of how costly they are, and they are definitely growth investments that the town does require, we are seeking assistance from the provincial and federal government to help support us implement those.
Counselor.
Answered perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 6.1.8 corporate items, binder tab 13, Swainer Van Kessel.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last presentation for the evening. So corporate accounts is basically the home for all the budget items that really just don't fit anywhere else. So what we have in our corporate accounts is there's a bit of variability that happens in here. And what's happening is in the latter years in 2026, there's some significant increases into our reserves. As you know, from the financial strategy on asset management, we recognize that we would take the savings from the completion of the LED debt and the savings from the producer responsibility from waste and contribute those to asset management, which is why you see the significant impact, particularly in 2026 on this slide here. So when we look at the changes to what was presented in the budget last year, we have taken out the multi-year contingency for 2025. The amount for 2026 of 100,000 still remains in, as we will potentially need that for any unknowns at this point in time. And what that $100,000 has done is it's gone to offset some of the pressures in other departments' budgets, including some of the new contract renewals that we've had in areas such as operational services. We have added a small amount of revenue this year for HST rebates. What we do on an annual basis is this is part of the HST that the government agencies have to pay. So this is 1.76% that's non-recoverable. However, we can apply for credits where if it's paid on a facility or a program where we're actually going to generate revenue, we can actually recoup some of that 1.76%. And we've had a little bit of success with that over the last few years. So we've actually included some of this in our budget and corporate accounts this year. We did need to make an adjustment to payments in lieu of taxes. We overestimated the amount for last year, and this is just a correction to reflect the actual payments in lieu. These are payments that are made by the federal and provincial governments. Instead of paying property taxes, they pay payments in lieu of taxes. The next portion is related to the redirection of the town square debt financing, which was originally going to go into long-term debenture. We flipped that over to the hydro reserve, and now we're able to take that monies and put it towards asset management, helping deal with some of the asset management obligations we have over the long term. And then we also have an adjustment to our tax stabilization and draws over the next couple of years. And that is it. I'm happy to take any questions.
We had a motion to receive for information. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Weiss, any comments, questions on this binder tab? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Before I call for adjournment, I'll just remind council, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. Not only to myself, but also all of ELT as well as our CAO. We've all made time available. We can sit down and go through any questions or concerns that you might have before we get to the period that amendments are required by November 21st. I believe that's correct. Swearing. Thank you. So with that, I will call for adjournment. Motion. Counselor Gallo, second. Counselor Weiss, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.